Rational Skeptic here, and today I am going to be doing a video continuing the MBTI Anime series, and I'm going to be covering Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball Z Super, whichever one you may have, but I'm going to be covering a couple of the characters in the show. I would like to cover two characters in this specifically because I like the interaction between both of them in the show, and I I think it's good to contrast them to one another. And so the first character I'm going to be doing is Goku. Goku is an ENFP. He is an extroverted intuitive dominant, introverted feeling auxiliary, extroverted thinking tertiary, and an introverted sensing inferior function user. The reasons I have him as an ENFP are as follows. He starts in a very telling episode when he is fighting Frieza. He has this quote: I am the hope of the universe. I am the answer to all living things that cry out for peace. I am the protector of the innocent. I am the light in the darkness. I am truth. Ally to good, nightmare to you. End quote. And so in this we can really narrow him down to an NF. So even if you didn't agree for an ENFP, you could narrow him down to an NF, being an idealist, as he's talking about being truth, he's talking about being a friend to the protector of the innocent, he's talking about being a light, and so all these things are typically known to surround NFs. The reason he is an extroverted intuitive dominant and on the same axis an introverted sensing inferior is mostly tied to the theory that I've spoken about before, in that I think that childhood has a lot of impact on how a type develops. And the once you have an introverted sensing inferior, that childhood can propel you many times to turn into an extroverted intuitive that tries to mold the world into varying possibilities and varying outcomes in order to kind of overcome that feeling of initial weakness. And so, where did that feeling of initial weakness come from for him? If you remember, he was sent off a dying planet to Earth, and as a child, he had to overcome turning into a gorilla or monkey, big ape. Whenever the full moon came out, he had to overcome not having any parents on Earth. If you kind of see a similar to the Superman story, but I digress. Not not having any family on Earth and having to train to become stronger and train to fight the battles that would come. At the same time, he is the champion archetype because, as you can see, he is always trying to improve upon himself. He's always trying to become better, stronger, and where there seems to be no way, he always seems to burst up into another way. If you can see, he starts a Super Saiyan. And this particular quote that I had at the beginning of him being hope to all the universe was when he was fighting Frieza, and it's around the time he first turned into a Super Saiyan for the first time. So you can see that he's constantly breaking boundaries. He's constantly finding new possibilities, and he seems to be the first person to usually discover these new possibilities. And so uh, this also ties into how NE is a very curious function. It's one that's always searching for or trying to reach beyond the unknown and bring into reality something which has not prior to existed. In this case, he is the first to turn into a Super Saiyan, a Super Saiyan 2, 3, Super Saiyan 4, and Super Saiyan God. He manages to undergo all these transformations. And although he reaches um, a kind of top level, you can call it, or maximum or limit, where you can think he's reached a limit, he tends to always look for how to break those limits. I like to mention the movie that had him and Broly, and Vegeta. In this movie, they were fighting, and it took a fusion between Vegeta and Goku to defeat him. At the same time, well, they actually weren't able to defeat him. A wish had to be made in order for him to be defeated. So they technically did not. At the same time, even after the fight, where Broly escapes to his basically home planet where his father took him, uh, Goku goes to that planet and speaks to him. He also takes food and supplies to him. After taking food and supplies to him, he tells him, basically, he says to him, "Yeah, I know that you had a very tough uh, childhood and you are a fighter, but you have been kind of crafted into being this person that you are. And there was kind of a lot of neglect from your dad, and you were basically befriending monsters, and there was really nobody at your power level to even practice your immense power with. So Goku was just empathizing with him again, the FI connection, empathizing with Broly, that he understands what it's like to be so powerful and not have anything to do with that power. And Goku is basically offering him a different way, telling him that he should train, and he's probably going to be back to fight with him sometime soon. So, like this empathy with Broly is comes from a place of introverted feeling, but at the same time, it comes from a place of extroverted intuitive trying to actualize the other person as well. So he's looking into a possible future where Broly becomes so strong that Goku is almost unable to beat him, and so that he can go undergo his next transformation. So Super Saiyan God raised to the power 10 or something like that. But basically, I'm leaning towards ENFP because he has all these characteristics of a champion. He has the functional attributes that are kind of overlay his whole being. And although I know others think he is an extroverted sensing dominant instead because he loves to fight and he's very focused on his body, and they don't see him as being too bright, which is what a lot of people like to associate intuition with. It's not the case. He is a very curious character. He's analogous to Naruto in how Naruto wanted to become the Hokage. He's also an ENFP, and he was not the brightest person at all, but if you look at the growth of each of these characters, you end up finding that they usually end up becoming one of the more wiser people in the show. Naruto, it's the same thing, going, fighting his inner demons, discovering the boundary between good and bad, and understanding that sometimes those things intersect, and it's very hard to separate one from the other. But holding on to your ideal of creating a better world is good enough for you to push through and pray and hope for the strength to do what you need to do when the time comes. And so, yeah, that's it for Goku. Next, I'm gonna be covering Vegeta. And Vegeta, I've seen some crazy typings for. I've seen some people type Vegeta as an ISFP. I've seen some people type him as ESTP, and yeah, I believe they're wrong. And a kind of pattern that I've seen emerging is that when people see people that fight, people that are strong and use their hands to fight, they tend to just immediately think extroverted sensing. But that's silly. How could we say that extroverted sensing just has to do with being strong and the body? No, it has to do with overarching patterns, patterns of an archetype. And so we need to look more into what these characters do over time to get a sketch out of their archetype rather than just looking at their general character's demeanor, so to speak. And so he is an ENTJ. He is an extroverted thinking dominant, introverted intuitive auxiliary, extroverted sensing tertiary, and an introverted feeling inferior function user. His extroverted thinking is very apparent in the way that he's also constantly trying to realize certain potential. At the same time, you can see a sort of reliance upon technology. So he takes what some may call shortcuts, but at the same time, he is utilizing pragmatic tools in the world in order to hasten his his growth or hasten his evolution. And we can see that he's constantly in competition with Goku. Goku being the one who normally crosses the milestones first, and Vegeta usually coming behind. But at the same time, you can see Vegeta places Goku as his kind of limit. Whenever Goku reaches something, he tries to reach that thing as well. And so we even have a very a good vision of his introverted intuition as well, because using his introverted intuition, there are many instances where, for example, he destroys a planet. He destroys a planet because he thinks that someone, uh, he thought that Goku was on it and he needed to destroy Goku or something like that. But basically, the the reason that he has introverted intuition as an auxiliary rather than a dominant is because you do not see the mastermind archetype in Vegeta. You see someone that more so reacts to present circumstances, and he can use introverted intuition in particular cases to foresee outcomes of his behavior, foresee outcomes of carrying out a plan with his squad, and he commands them from afar. He's a born leader, so to speak. At the same time, he also has extroverted sensing as a tertiary function, and so you can see this move towards becoming stronger, making more, having more impact upon the world. And extroverted sensing is usually all about the moment. It's usually all about expanding your sensory awareness, um, not only becoming more powerful, but increasing your amount of willpower, for example, or uh, making yourself be able to react quicker and faster to a changing environment. And we see this play out with Vegeta all through the show as well. And finally, introverted feeling. I mean, yeah, if this is not apparent to you, I don't know what is. You can see exactly how he struggles with introverted sensing. This is very clear. Sorry, how he struggles with introverted feeling. My bad. This is very clear in that he is not in touch with any of his emotions, so to speak, and and this is why I wanted to do the comparison using him and Goku, because on the other hand, Goku does have this awareness of introverted feeling. And so when communicating and interacting with Vegeta, Goku tends to guide him toward through his own feelings in a sense. Like, okay, Vegeta, I see what you're doing. Alright, just know that you gotta train better to be stronger than me, okay? And smiles. And, Vegeta gets very angry and frustrated and throws the key ball at him. And yeah, this is him playing with his introverted feeling because that is where his self-image lies as well. And so introverted feeling inferior in that the amount of times in which he basically bursts up in emotion is a lot more so than one that would have been an INTJ, for example, having introverted feeling tertiary. They're a lot more calm and relaxed. They have a lot more control over extroverted thinking. So you don't see that explosion or that passion coming out as much within them. And so that's just a quick way that you could uh, kick out INTJ between INTJ and ENTJ. The other typing I saw for him was ISFP. I don't think he could be an ISFP really. He's ISFP would mean that he would have an inferior extroverted thinking, and in order to command such an army and carry out such dubious acts, I don't think you could consider him to be an introverted feeler, dominant. Uh, Maybe that's just you, but yeah, Vegeta is an ENTJ, and yeah, those are my main reasons. We see that as Vegeta progresses through the show, he starts to become more actualized, more in touch with his introverted feeling, even though he still has that cold, hard exterior that you could see as pretending to be cold, hard exterior, but to each their own. And yeah, that would be it for this episode of the MBTI anime series and for Dragon Ball Z episode 1, I would say. And I will be doing more characters from the show, exploring more. Let's see what Whis is, and let's see what Krillin is, and Master Roshi. Those are going to be interesting characters to do. But until next time, I'll see you guys. The Irrational Skeptic, signing off.